you make it coherent by applying certain filters, by applying the diaphragm to the light, and then you make it structured, you make it coherent. Most of the laser light is monochromatic, but our lasers that we work with, they are actually multicolored. They have several different laser diodes. And actually, I don't know if you knew that, but the laser is actually acronym as well. And the laser stands for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. That's what laser actually means. Lower level laser means that it's non-heating light. It's a very gentle one. It's other names for this technology are cold laser or soft laser. It's because it's always under 1 watt of power. It's very gentle one. And even then, most of the low-level lasers were too strong for us. Like I started with SCENAR and Cosmotic, as you know, and I looked for the technologies that would complement it, but not counteract, not go in conflict with this. Most of the lasers that I evaluated, which made sense, we actually evaluated them from a point of view of adding energy to the system, so SCENAR and Cosmotic can work better, faster. But most of them seem to be too stimulating. The body would have to work with the laser alone or with the SCENAR alone. It could not do both at the same time. It was too much. Until we came through the laser that we call the Q laser. It's an American technology. On the right, you see all the effects that low-level laser actually has on the body. I will not be going through every single one of them. It just, in general, what you probably need to know is that the laser, cold laser or soft laser, increases the energy resources of the system. It affects mitochondria and motivates it to produce more ATP or energy molecules, adenosine 3-phosphate, which we consider to be an energy molecule in a cell. So that's one of the mechanisms of action. Another one, low-level laser affects or repairs damaged and injured cell membranes and make them more permeable for the nutrients, allows the oxygen and nutrients go inside the cell and the toxin be released by the cell. So it actually affects the cell membranes, which are not healthy. That's another one. And of course, there are all other things that the low-level laser can do. There's lots of studies has been done all over the world on that mechanism of action of low-level laser. There are many models, many types of low-level lasers on the market. We like the Q laser, and the reason why we like the Q laser are as follows. The Q laser is a multicolored, so it has a wavelength of several wavelengths blended together. When you blend them together in certain, well, proprietary technology, you get an effect of what's called a soliton wave. And soliton wave is something that is known in nature as the waves that produced by dolphins or whales when they communicate with each other on a very long distance. Or tsunami is another example. It's the wave that travels a very long distance without losing its amplitude, losing its height. Because of that effect, you can have the cascading light going right through the body without losing the amplitude. You don't have to have a strong, powerful radiation, laser radiation, to achieve a very big effect. That's what we like about the Q laser. It's a very low power. So basically, we always compare it to a sprinkling system versus a fire hydrant. So like stimulating lasers are like fire hydrants, and the Q laser is like sprinkle system. So Q laser also can be programmed to emit the light with certain frequencies, and as you know, all tissues, each organ in the body have different frequencies it vibrates on. So the light actually can be programmed to modulate the frequencies and combine them in a certain therapeutic mode, which is the most beneficial for one or another condition in the body. It can be programmed to up to 9 therapeutic frequencies, but it's also like about 200 modes that you can actually program into your laser to make it to suit your particular needs. So that's why we like the Q laser, and we selected it as a part of the healing fusion system. So that's the summary of what low-level laser does. Supplies coherent light energy. It recharges our biological batteries, increasing the ATP production in the cells, and also increase the easy water content. And I'm not sure that you are actually familiar with the concept of easy water. Easy water is something that was described not so long ago, but by a professor from Washington University, Gerald Pollack, and he calls it a fourth phase of water. As you know, we have three phases of water: liquid, gas, liquid, and ice. So the fourth phase of water is somewhere between the liquid and the ice. Fourth phase of water, he found, is formed around the cellular structures in the body, or around every membrane in the body. And it's a little thin, very thin layer of water, which is not like any other water in the body. It's very well structured, and it is negatively charged. So it is an area of water which expels other particles out of it. It keeps its own integrity always. So EZ means exclusion zone. So this is a zone that excludes everything else. Any other particle, any other molecule is just the water that is negatively charged versus positively charged water everywhere else. So this easy water surrounds the cellular structures and the cells themselves. So what happens is actually negatively charged layer of water around the cell structures and positively charged water elsewhere create the effect of a battery. So that's how our body actually recharges itself. It's another way of our body to keep the energy going. In order to keep the easy water, which is extremely important, it turns out, to be for the health of the cells and cellular structures, and actually it helps the layer of easy water in our capillaries, in our blood vessels, allows for the blood to flow freely. And if we do not have that little layer of water, then blood aggregates, and we can get blood clots, and our microcirculation stagnates. And you know what happens when microcirculation stagnates. We don't get enough oxygen, not enough nutrients to the cells, and eventually cells die out of starvation and accumulation of toxic products, toxic wastes. So easy water is extremely important for the body. And how do you get it? Well, it turns out you get it with coherent light. So the light actually provides the photons of light that turn into electrons in the body, and those electrons go and increase that easy water layer. We didn't know that. Actually, when we were talking about low-level laser recharging your biological battery, we had no idea that there is actually a fourth phase of water. It only lately we found out, and sure enough, okay, now we know that there is another way, another mechanism of action of the low-level laser that we had no idea about, and it turns out it just literally recharges our biological battery, increasing the layer of easy water. It's very interesting research. There are a few videos on YouTube. SCENAR and Kossovskaia. SCENAR and Kossovskaia are the technologies that also provide a lot of things, but they do things complementary to the laser. They do not actually mimic the laser, they do it a little differently. So SCENAR and Kossovskaia are electrical tools. So they're electrical stimulators. It's not light, it's electricity. They also improve communication, but they improve communication not on the level of light. They address nervous system and they address hormonal or endocrine systems. By doing that, SCENAR is capable of speeding up the adaptive reactions in the body, and that's what we talked about yesterday, that diseases actually can be viewed as slow adaptive reactions. So if you apply SCENAR and Kossovskaia, you speed up the adaptive reactions of the body. They also clean the body's programs. They work on informational level, their energy and informational technologies. They clean actually, when we think of what are the reasons of lack of energy in the body. It can be lack of energy, it can be blockages of energy, or it can be leaking of energy somewhere. So scanner stops leakages, it cleans the blockages, and that way it also directs the energy to where it's needed. I will show you in a second how it does that. So these are technologies that work on level of electricity and nervous system and endocrine system. So that's the self-controlled energy neuroadaptive regulator, that acronym what SCENAR stands for. And in a way, it's a universal regulator of body functions, or as we call it, ideal electrotherapy. So this is the idea behind the SCENAR. It has two main particular features. The SCENAR impulse is very much resembling natural neuroimpulse. It's almost like you see the impulse on ECG, but not quite. The first phase of that impulse is very high, very strong, and very short. So basically, when you apply impulse like that to the body gets a hit and pays attention. Body pays attention to the place where SCENAR will be applied, and that's very important, because SCENAR will find the places on the body which represent the pathology. And when you apply the SCENAR impulse that screams SOS, pay attention to me, I'm here, then the body starts paying attention to the pathology. And paying attention creates awareness. And awareness is the key to success. So, the SCENAR impulse called pathologic informational pseudoneuroimpulse, just because it's very high in the first phase. Not really that it mimics the pathology, but it's just a very high amplitude. It is very short, very strong, non-damaging because it's very short. When we apply SCENAR signal like that, what we get? Well, second feature of the SCENAR is the ability to receive the feedback from the body. So when we're applying that strong impulse that screams SOS, the body naturally responds. SCENAR will read the response and adjust the second signal according to the body's response. And that exchange of information between the machine and the body is going about approximately 60 times per second, because basic frequency of SCENAR is 60 hertz. It can be more, but that's the average. So this exchange of information, SCENAR sends the signal, body responds, SCENAR adjusts, adapts, sends another signal, the body responds differently, SCENAR adapts again. So SCENAR adapts to the body's responses, not the other way around. And that makes the whole difference in the technology, which is adaptive to the body. So it's another system that actually mimics the living system. It works on the same principle of auto-stabilization based on the feedback, as we were as living systems. So that's the input-output feedback. That's what SCENAR does. Like the adaptive system of the body, adaptive system of the SCENAR is the same thing. So this is how SCENAR actually reads the feedback, sends another one. It's a loop that's going on about 60 times per second. Now, does SCENAR effectively work everywhere on the body? Is that, you know, any place on the body where you apply it and it's going to work like that? Not quite. But when SCENAR hits the body with that strong impulse, it affects the nervous system. It affects the nervous fibers. As you know, there are 4 types of nervous fibers, and 3 major types, there was another one. But 3 A, B, and C types of nervous fibers in the body. A being the, you know, fibers of muscles, and it's a speedy ones. B is the average, and C type of fibers, they are not myelinated. They're mostly fibers that innervate internal organs and the organs that are our vital organs, the organs with our vital functions. C types of fibers is very difficult to excite. But what is important to remember is that in the synapses of nervous fibers, they are regulatory peptides or neuropeptides released, molecules which are called messenger molecules of the body. These are molecules that trigger different physiological reactions. And each basically neuropeptide, and now it's lots of them are known, every day brings us a new neuropeptide described, but they regulate physiological functions, trigger physiological functions. So by exciting the nervous fibers, we actually motivate the synapses of nervous fibers to release those neuropeptides, those regulatory peptides. Most of them are being released in the C-type fibers, in the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic type of system fibers. And that is difficult to do because the C-types they're thin, they're difficult to excite, and they require very high power of electricity in order to do that. So TENS unit cannot do it. They're not strong enough. And then we need to accumulate effective concentration of those molecules so they can trigger physiological functions. Well, by applying scanner impulse, which is dynamic, which is changing all the time, the body does not develop tolerance to the impulse, so it keeps responding. The nervous system keeps responding. And besides that, that's first phase, which is very strong, capable of exciting C-type of fibers, which keep producing our regulatory peptides for quite a while. And these regulatory peptides trigger different physiological reactions in the body. It's enough to accumulate effective concentrations of them. So with the scanner application, we pretty much can release the entire internal pharmacy of regulatory peptides in a very short time. It takes about 5 minutes, maybe even less, to actually provide for massive release of regulatory peptides in the body. How can you know it? Well, one of the type of regulatory peptides is endorphins. So with the actually scanner treatments, you have endorphin release and better mood, better sleep, better working capacity real fast after you start your treatments, as a positive side effects, as we call them. But that was a biophysical explanation. That was explanation that we usually give to medical doctors. And another explanation from point of view of energy information, which does not have any scientific background or scientific proof yet, but that's how we explain it to ourselves, how the body works and how the scanner works. So there is a pathology in the system. Pathology, if it's a chronic one, it's always a place of the body which the body does not like to deal with. If it's a chronic pathology, it means the adaptive reaction is not finalized. It means the body cannot finish it. And if the body cannot finish something, it would rather isolate it from the rest of the body so it does not bother the rest of the body and let the body do its job in some other places, than deal with it. So it can't deal with it, let's isolate it. So the body builds kind of informational and energetic barriers around the pathology. It surrounds it with energetic walls. So it's isolated energetically and informationally from the rest of the body, sometimes even physically. We call it energy cysts for simply understanding. So there is a pathology which is surrounded by energy cysts, which is a good thing if you consider that the body still needs to function, it needs to do other things. What is not a good thing is that it's really difficult to break through those barriers. And as you know, if you get a chronic disease, it's really difficult to get rid of it. It's just because the body doesn't want to see it. It pays attention to somewhere else. So what we need to do, we need to find the places on the body where we can actually access informationally that energy cyst. And we need to break those barriers so body